Got a kid coming to the Contender Series. Kid out of California. He's had 5 fights. They all took place in Mexico. He's going to come out to the Apex jurisdiction of Las Vegas, compete. Youngest kid ever. Great headline, right? Great story. Now, I would tell you guys, up, down, and sideways, and I have never flinched on this. You fight anyone, anytime, anywhere, or you're a bully. You don't belong here. You're showing what you believe your self-worth as soon as you back down. I don't care if it's the champion. I don't care if it's the number 20 guy. Now, there would be an exception to that I've never once considered, which is a child. You do not have to go beat up a child. I mean, I would tell you that. I never have told you that because I've never been confronted with it. I'm just wondering what you think. Like this was a really major story. Went and interviewed the kid and he talked about what he had to do and get parental notes. And there was stuff that had to be done for him to be able to compete at this level and get a license. I'm good with all of it. I just found it interesting, but I want to know what you guys think. Because he talked about that he went over to Europe and he had won a world championship. Now, the sport that you know as mixed martial arts, okay, that sport is the sport of pancration. For the life of me, I do not know why they don't call it pancration. They were trying to get a bill passed through the legislature in 2001. They had to name it something. It got called mixed martial arts. I don't begrudge that. I'm just sharing with you the history of it. Because a lot of people will hang their hat on, hey, this is martial arts, and how come you're not bowing? How come you're not showing more respect to your opponent? It's not mixed martial arts. It's not martial arts of any kind, unless you want it to be. It became that in 2001. It's very appropriate to call it mixed martial arts. Now, that is legally what it's called. Just so you understand, it's the sport of pancration. And they do contest that for all ages in Europe. This young man went. He even went to a world championship. He took on a Slovakian. He took on a German. He took on a Russian. Took on a Lebanese. He shared this. Okay. I like it and I was familiar with it. And you guys will know another name, Aaron Pico. Aaron Pico had gone and done the same thing. So you largely read about this. This isn't publicized, but it does get contested. I just want to know what you think. And a lot of people are going to be prudes about that. There's a number of states that have athletic commissions that will not allow it. Now, you hear a 17-year-old and he's going to go up. It could be a few months. It could be 2 days for all we know. And I do understand that there's a difference. But the law recognizes adult. They recognize minor. They separate that by 18 years old. Below or above. Straight up. So if you could do it at 17, even if it's 17 and a half, even if it's 17 and 3/4, why can't you do it at 7? From a legal perspective, what difference would it make? And you won't have one. The law doesn't allow for one. The law allows for minors, adults, and draws at 18. So I'm just wondering what you think. Because before you're a prude and before you think I don't want to see children in there, and anybody that would put whatever this thing you're talking about over in Europe and you're letting kids fight, I don't know that I totally disagree with you. Like, it does strike me weird too. I haven't formed an opinion. I'm trying to get debate going. I just can't compare that to any other sport. If basketball is legal for adults, but it's also legal for 4-year-olds, it's legal for 5-year-olds, it's legal for 6-year-olds. I could play that game with hockey. I realize that when it comes to football, most jurisdictions, it's not state law anywhere, most jurisdictions that oversee football, including the one that I live in right now, you can't tackle until 6th grade. That used to be 7th, they moved it to 6th. I'm just sharing for you, there is some different rules, but I also follow boxing, which happens to be an Olympic sport, which happens to get filled up with what I am defining and the law defines as minors. But what's the difference if the kid is 17? What's the difference if he's 16? What's the difference if he's 8 or 9? How can you say that he can go and do this? How can you say that the government is going to sanction it? The laws are all going to support it. Oh, by the way, you can't practice. Do you see the problem? Where the law would want adults in there because it's content and this is serious and you want to know that they're adults. At the same time, you're telling them they can't practice? Every other sport you get to practice. There's not a starter. I don't know about the NBA as a whole. There's not a starter on any team anywhere in the league that did not play as a child. Just an example. True with the NHL as well. Matter of fact, I read a piece on the NHL, and the youngest current player was 14. He got exposed to it his freshman year, but that was a big deal. It was a big enough deal that SI covered it, that somebody discovered the sport as a freshman and made it to the National League. So in that vein, a person, of course, gets to practice. Of course, they need to practice. Of course, you want them to practice. Every sport across the line. Why can they not practice MMA? And by practice and refine yourself, I'm talking about get in there and competing. Why can they not do that as a minor? It's a tough question. I don't have the answer, by the way. I'm not leaning on one side or the other. I just know this debate has been going. I know a number of athletic commissions have this rule, but it's yet to be tested. What tested means is they haven't yet been sued. Now, within those very states where they will not allow minors to compete, and they would never allow for a minor to take on an adult, within those very same states, they have cities, and those cities have gyms, a number of them. And any age can go in and train. Any age can go in and spar. You can do the exact activity, you just can't do it in a competitive format, which again is the rule, but it's never been tested, meaning they haven't yet been sued. And I don't think that they're going to hold up. Now, how would you like to be if you were this opponent, this young man that I'm speaking of? How would you like to be his opponent? And I don't know who the opponent is. Is one 17 and the other one's 19? They could have been in high school at the same time. I mean, it would feel a little bit different than a 17-year-old that has to get special permission from an adult known as a parent to go in there and take on a 27-year-old. It would feel different. Should it be? Is it? How come? They could do it in basketball. They could do it in soccer. They can do it in tennis. They could do it in golf. They could do it in absolutely any other sport. Why does ours continue to get singled out? I feel like the answer to that is very obvious because of the contact. I feel like it's very obvious. But you then run into the next question, which is how, not why. You run into how. How do states and laws and rules go against that? I can go over here with this person and we can do all of these same things. We just do it in a gym. Gyms are insured. Gyms have parental consent. Why on Saturday night can we not walk out and do it and have an outcome? Have a competition. Don't judge my body language here, guys. Don't judge my tone in my face. I do not have an opinion on this. It's a very wild situation. A young man from California who's 17 years old will represent the youngest contestant ever on the Dana White Contender Series. Now, if he goes out there and wins, by the way, just so you understand, he should have every right. That's going to be real obvious in hindsight. If he goes out there and wins and belongs, gets a contract into the Ultimate Fighting Championship, he's going to prove that he belonged, and he did it honorably. He did it above board. Roberto Duran lied to athletic commissions for years about how old he was, but he did it to feed his family. He goes down as a legend. We rejoice stories like that. But if a 17-year-old who gets parental consent goes out there and gets ground and pounded, he gets thrown down, he gets sliced open with elbows by somebody who's 28, 29, I'm just throwing names at you, it's going to appear very different. I wish the young man well. I wish his opponent well, quite frankly. I think that's a very hard spot to be in. But I also respect that the young man believes in himself, and I respect the opponent for treating him like any other competitor. If there's ever been a time that old Chael sat on a fence, you're looking at it right now. But I don't want to be on the fence. I want to fall to one side or the other. So let's have some debate and tell me what you think.